And it's just on-court storylines that I'm looking forward to this season. And that's Keldon's year 6 in, in this new role, whether that he's a starter or off the bench. Again, we think it's going to be off the bench, but you never know. We'll see what happens in this training camp. But I think his role this season, regardless of where he ends up, will be more defined. And at the end of the day, I mean, if he's in the starting lineup, then it's like, okay, he's going to be next to Chris Paul. Chris Paul is going to be orchestrating the offense. I think that's already going to be, a lot of the questions on the floor that we had last year. It's not going to be the same with Chris Paul orchestrating everything. And then if it's him off the bench, we've already kind of seen that chemistry grow, as well as just, us having a little bit more confidence in the bench unit with the chemistry and really the addition of Stephon Castle is a big part of that as well.
Facts. I would say most people need to go watch the small forward breakdown more than any of the other breakdowns, because that's where we really dive into Keldon and then Harrison and our arguments for bench and starting rotation.
And even Julian Champagnie.
Juju Champagnie, baby.
We mentioned him earlier as well. But the other things, that was one of them. So I'm glad we kind of touched on that. But I'll just read these off and you can kind of, pick from them here.
Okay.
Wemby's year 2 jump. We kind of already touched on that a little bit earlier, but just to see his ascension, we've already seen so many crazy things last year. PM 113 was talking about how he had a very solid Olympics as well. And so I'm just excited to see that progression moving forward with Victor. The other thing, CP3 and Harrison's impact. We've been harping on that over the past 6 weeks as well. But just those veteran presences, like I know a lot of people I've been seeing in the comments, and I'm not even necessarily disagreeing with them, but they'll talk about Harrison Barnes as kind of like a salary dump and stuff like that. And we're not trying to sit here and act like this is going to be, prime Golden State Warriors Harrison Barnes, but the intangible things that these guys bring, as well as the experience and lessons that they can teach these young players from all of their experience in the past, I think that is invaluable stuff. So I'm really excited to see that stuff and maybe some of the things that they can teach them translate to the floor. I'm not saying it's going to happen game 1, but over the course of the season, I'm really excited for that.
Chris Paul is just a complete addition, like something we didn't have at all last year. So that'll definitely be beneficial. Even if it's not the same Chris Paul that we're used to seeing, he will be an addition. Harrison Barnes, the one I saw the most, was like he's not even better than Cedi Osman, who we had on the roster last year. I think he's marginally better than Cedi Osman. I would say even a large margin than Cedi Osman. I'm not expecting the world from him, but as a floor spacer, as a connective piece, and as a defender, I still think he's high impact. Statistically, he won't be anything crazy, but I'd still say that we improved with those two guys, in addition to all of the intangible things that you just touched on, Jude.
Yeah, and when you talk about the Cedi comparison, the other thing is he's a little bit bigger than Cedi as well. Nothing crazy, but like you said, it's a marginal increase. We're not trying to sit here and say that Harrison Barnes is going to come in here and be an all-star and fix all of our problems. We're just trying to say that
it's an improvement.
It's an improvement, and it's a very beneficial addition considering the context of this team.
Facts.
Okay, some other things I had written down. Devin Vassell playing next to Chris Paul.
It's going to be big. It's going to be big for him.
He's going to be set up so much more, man. He's going to be able to play off the ball more. And that also ties into his defense. Like, as much as I just mentioned that as an offensive thing, I feel like almost this offseason, Devin's been a little bit forgotten about in a sense. Not in the sense that we haven't talked about him or didn't do an episode on him, but I feel like he kind of flies under the radar with all of the other storylines on the team. And it's like, hey, he's going into his contract year now. We saw what he did last season. And again, if we had to pick one player of who we think has all-star potential on the team other than Victor, I think both of our first choice would be Devin Vassell.
100%. And I think on top of the defensive thing that you just mentioned, the other aspect of his game that will be really exciting for me to see is Chris Paul allows him to be what we drafted, which is an off-ball scorer, a floor spacer, a guy that moves well without the basketball. Last year, the year before, he really had to be ball dominant, pick and roll ball handler. And we saw him make strides in that area, but I still don't even think that's the best part of his game. I think the best part of his game is playing similar to role to Devin Booker when Devin Booker played next to Chris Paul. So I'm excited to see him get back to that mold of himself, and it'll open up the rest of his game.
Yeah, and I'm just excited for him to like have plays run for him and have
Mhm.
Chris Paul orchestrating them.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, as Cowboy Tanaka says here in the comments, I think Devin had some real pressure on him last year.
For sure.
Absolutely. I mean, other than Victor, that's who these teams were scheming for.
Yep. And if you look at any of the national media profiles on the Spurs this
Hmm.
offseason, it's like, other than Victor, there's really only one guy I'd consider untouchable, and it's always Devin Vassell.
Yeah, and I agree with that personally.
Mhm. Me too. I mean, I think we would also throw in Jeremy Sohan,
Right.
maybe Stephon at this point in his career, but yeah, Devin for sure.
Getting into year one of that 5-year contract, we're
Mhm.
excited to see it.
Me too.
Payday, and we're hoping for paydays on the floor as well.
Well put.
But the other thing that you were just mentioning there, you mentioned his name, Stephon Castle.
Yeah.
That's really the last thing I have written down here. Just him fitting into everything and watching his improvement throughout the year, as well as his increased reps at the point guard position, maybe even with the starting lineup at times.
Yeah, I'm not expecting crazy numbers from Stephon this year. I think immediate impact will be as a point of attack defender. Obviously, that's his best attribute coming out of the draft. It's he's very athletic. He's going to be guarding probably the best perimeter guy, at least off the bench, whenever he comes in, and it might even be brought into the starting lineup to kind of deal with some of the high level perimeter players in this league. But what I'm looking for from him, it's kind of a Jonathan Simmons level impact. That first year with Jonathan Simmons. Obviously, his ceiling is way higher, and
Uh-huh.
we hope he's gonna
Right.
be an all-star, but what Jonathan Simmons brought to us that first year when he, played for the Spurs, I think at 27 as a rookie, was pretty crazy and eye-opening just as an athletic finisher, cutter, taking an open jump shot when it came to him and not forcing his offensive
Mhm.
game, and that allowed him to be super impactful when it came to winning games.
I know that sounds crazy when you think about the context of Jonathan Simmons' career and,
Mhm.
him being an undrafted guy, earning a contract at a tryout for the Austin Spurs, and then earning a contract. But honestly, dude, I see exactly what you're saying because I think about the impact he had in that 2017 season. Even the season opener, I still remember this, Ethan. Him
Mhm.
coming in and hitting that, going crazy, hitting that bit, that almost, I can't remember how far it was, but it was like a Steph like three
Yep.
before halftime, from deep range to drain it on the KD Warriors. And so
And
I think sorry to interrupt you, but
no, you're good.
just to finish up, his athleticism, as well as, you talked about his defensive impact, but his athleticism and his hustle, I see that definitely. Like, I see what you're saying with Jonathan Simmons, like the similarities there, at least for rookie Stephon Castle.
Right, and I think he'll have that impact at 19, where Jonathan Simmons was 26 years old and already a full-grown man. So just imagine where he's gonna be in 5 years' time. The ceiling is unlimited for this kid. And, go back and watch that season opener in 2017 against the KD Warriors. Ended the game, garbage time. Jonathan Simmons
Mhm.
had a great game. He put JaVale McGee on one of the nastiest posters
That's
ever.
right. Yeah.
Ever. So cool. I think he also blocked Steph Curry on, like, a LeBron, chase down. Like,
He
he had a
went insane
crazy game.
that game.
Yeah, it was nasty. Him and Pau Gasol had, like, this, like, dribble handoff baseline jumper. Money every time. Pretty sure he never missed one.
2017 Jay Sims is undefeated.
Couldn't have said it better.